What's up, y'all? I'm Dream Dog, Breed Father, and I just want to say rest in peace to my baby girl. And to her cousins that was driving, I told y'all don't be riding with her. She don't need to be riding with y'all. Y'all just doing too much. And who's that fourth person? Talking about a hairstylist. Why am I hearing shit last? I don't know what to do. Send y'all prayers, y'all. Cause I'm ready to ride them. When I figure out who did it, they say they got somebody, but I don't believe that's the person. I don't believe that's the person. But if it is, I'm going to jail myself. Going to jail myself. I'm gonna figure out something. I'm gonna get real close. Are you serious? Shit all over the news, world news, top news, national news, TMZ, CNN, ABC News, Fox News, CBS News, all over Instagram, all over YouTube, all over TikTok. What the fuck? I don't like none of this shit. Look, I'm gonna get my get back. Get my get back. I'm finna bring my brothers, her uncles, all that. Nigga, we on it. Fuck. I'm gonna report back. When I find them, I'm gonna go live while I'm nigga, cause I ain't got nothing else to live for. Fuck. My child's supposed to bury me. I ain't supposed to bury them. I'll pray for me, cause I'm on demon time now. I'm on demon time. I was trying to be a saint. But that right there, nah, it ain't going like that.
There was one sentence that stopped thousands of people in their tracks. I don't want them to go to jail. Leave them on the street so I can get them.
Fuck that jail. I don't want them to go to jail. Leave their ass on the street so I can get them. Fuck it's up, nigga. I'm gone.
Those words spread across Facebook within hours. Some people heard rage. Some people heard revenge. But before any of that, there was something much easier to miss. The very first words Brianna Johnson's father spoke weren't about the people who took his daughter's life. They were about his daughter herself. Rest in peace to my baby girl. Everything else came after that. The anger, the questions, the frustration, the threats born from heartbreak. It all came after a father acknowledged a reality he still couldn't accept. His little girl was gone. When we cover cases like this, it's easy to become consumed by timelines, surveillance footage, and theories about who did what. We analyze phone records. We debate motives. We wait for arrests. But sometimes we forget that behind every homicide investigation is a family trying to survive something that has no instruction manual. That's what this Facebook Live really was. Not a press conference. Not evidence. Not an official account of the investigation. It was grief happening in real time. Before we continue, take a second to subscribe to Mystora Crimes and turn on the notification bell. Every story we tell represents real people whose lives were forever changed. Your support allows us to continue covering these cases with care, compassion, and respect long after the headlines fade. If you've never watched someone experience unimaginable loss, Brianna's father's live stream can feel shocking. His emotions move almost faster than his words. One moment, he's mourning his daughter. The next, he's questioning the decisions that led to that night. Then he's expressing anger toward whoever was responsible. Then he's pleading with people to pray for him. It's emotional whiplash. But psychologists often describe acute grief exactly that way. It doesn't arrive in neat stages. It crashes into people all at once. Sadness collides with disbelief. Disbelief collides with guilt. Guilt collides with anger. And anger searches desperately for somewhere to land. One moment from the live stream stands out almost immediately. He says he had warned Brianna not to ride with her cousins. Listen carefully to what that tells us. He's not proving that decision caused what happened. He's replaying the final choices before his daughter's death. That's something many grieving parents do. When something this unimaginable happens, the mind begins asking impossible questions. What if she'd stayed home? What if I convinced her not to go? What if one decision had been different? Those questions don't change the outcome, but they become part of grief. Because accepting that something terrible happened for reasons completely outside your control is often harder than believing there was one moment that could have changed everything. And perhaps that's where Brianna's father found himself. Not searching for blame, searching for a world where his daughter was still alive. As the live stream continued, it became clear that Brianna's father wasn't speaking from a script. He wasn't choosing his words carefully. He wasn't trying to give the public a polished statement. He was saying whatever came to his mind as grief collided with shock in real time. After questioning why Brianna had been riding with her cousins that night, another question suddenly came out. And who's that fourth person? Talking about a hairstylist. Why am I hearing this last? That question immediately caught people's attention, not because it answered anything, but because it showed how little Brianna's father felt he knew about the final hours of his daughter's life. Imagine losing your child, then turning on your phone and seeing strangers discuss details you've never even heard before. People you've never met are debating timelines, posting screenshots, naming people, sharing theories. Meanwhile, you're still trying to understand who was with your daughter before she died. That frustration is impossible to miss. His question about the hairstylist wasn't conclusion. It wasn't evidence. It reflected a father trying to understand information that seemed to be reaching the public as quickly as it was reaching him. Ironically, just days later, the hairstylist herself would publicly address the growing speculation. In a lengthy social media statement, she explained that she had spent part of the evening with Brianna and the group before the shooting. She said they had attended a birthday celebration and later gone to Kikun nightclub. She also stated that she believed earlier tensions involving people connected to the group had already been resolved and that she had been dropped off before the shooting took place. She went on to deny any involvement in the attack and acknowledged that, in the confusion after the shooting, she had mistakenly shared the wrong name with Brianna's family while trying to understand what had happened herself. She later publicly apologized for that mistake. Whether every detail of her account aligns with the investigation is something only detectives can determine. But hearing Brianna's father ask, "Why am I hearing this last?" suddenly makes more sense. He wasn't trying to solve the case on Facebook Live. He was trying to catch up to a story that had already become national news. As the live stream continued, his emotions became even more intense. He pleaded with people to pray for him because, in his own words, he didn't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. Send y'all prayers, y'all.
Then his grief turned into anger. He spoke about wanting to find the people responsible himself and expressed deep frustration with the idea that justice through the legal system would ever feel enough. At one point, he described himself as being on demon time, saying he'd been trying to be a saint, but after losing his daughter, he no longer felt that way.
I'll pray for me because I'm on demon time now. I'm on demon time. I was trying to be a saint, but that right there, nah, it ain't going like that.
Those were painful words to hear, but they were also the words of a father who had just suffered one of the greatest losses imaginable. They were not evidence. They did not identify a suspect. They did not change the investigation. They revealed something else entirely. What grief can sound like when it has nowhere left to go. And then, beneath all of the anger, came perhaps the most heartbreaking sentence of the entire live stream. "My child's supposed to bury me. I ain't supposed to bury them." In that moment, the investigation disappeared. The theories disappeared. The headlines disappeared. All that remained was a father trying to understand a world that no longer made sense. If there's one thing this live stream reveals, it's that grief doesn't move in a straight line. One moment, Brianna's father is asking questions. The next, he's expressing anger. Then, almost without warning, he begins talking about the sheer scale of what has happened. You can hear the disbelief in his voice as he lists where his daughter's story has appeared. TMZ, CNN, ABC News, Fox News, CBS News, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. To most of us, those are just names of news outlets and social media platforms. To him, they represented something much more painful. His daughter's death had become public property. Think about that for a moment. Just days earlier, Brianna was simply his daughter. Now her face was everywhere. People who had never met her were discussing her final moments. Content creators were making videos. Comment sections were filling with theories. News stations were running updates around the clock. While millions of people were consuming the story, he was living it. There's a profound difference between watching a tragedy and waking up inside one. As he continued speaking, another feeling began to emerge beneath the anger. helplessness. He admits that he doesn't know what to do. That may sound like a simple statement, but it's one of the most honest moments in the entire live stream. Parents spend years believing they can protect their children from scraped knees, from bad decisions, from dangerous situations. But there is no guide for what comes after losing a child to violence. There are no words that suddenly make sense, no advice that makes the pain disappear, only silence and questions that seem impossible to answer. For Brianna's father, those questions appear to be arriving faster than the answers. At one point, he says people have told him they already have someone responsible, but he immediately expresses doubt, saying he doesn't believe that's the right person. It's important to understand exactly what that means. This was his personal reaction during a Facebook Live. It was not a statement from law enforcement. It was not confirmation that an arrest had been made, nor was it evidence about the investigation. It reflected something many grieving families experience in high-profile cases. When information spreads rapidly through news reports, social media posts, and private conversations, families often hear many different versions of the same story before investigators are ready to publicly confirm anything. That uncertainty can become another source of pain. You don't know what to believe. You don't know who has accurate information. And every rumor creates another emotional roller coaster. That's why investigators consistently ask the public to avoid treating speculation as fact. Not because questions are wrong, but because premature conclusions can make an already painful situation even harder for families trying to separate truth from rumor. Listening to Brianna's father, you don't hear someone concerned about headlines. You hear someone desperate for certainty. Someone who wants one thing more than anything else: to know exactly what happened to his daughter. Because until that question is answered, grief has nowhere to rest. When Brianna's father ended that Facebook Live, he didn't leave people with answers. He left them with something far more difficult: a window into what grief looks like before time has had a chance to soften it. By then, millions of people had already formed opinions about the case. Some believed they knew exactly what had happened. Others were convinced they had already identified the people responsible. But listening to Brianna's father, one thing becomes painfully clear. He wasn't thinking about internet theories. He wasn't thinking about YouTube videos. He wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about one person: his daughter. And maybe that's the part of this case we lose too easily. When a homicide becomes national news, the victims slowly become characters in a story. We learn their names. We study their photographs. We debate their final decisions. But to the people who love them, they never become characters. They're still sons. They're still daughters. They're still cousins. They're still the people whose chairs will be empty at every family gathering from now on. As heartbreaking as Brianna's father's live stream was, it wasn't the only parent's voice the public heard. Around the same time, AJ's father also spoke publicly. But while Brianna's father was asking questions and expressing the overwhelming pain of losing his daughter, AJ's father found himself fighting a different battle. He wanted people to stop making assumptions about his son. As rumors spread across social media, he pushed back against the idea that AJ had somehow been involved in criminal activity or deserved what happened to him. He described AJ and Brianna as good kids, raised together like brother and sister, and made it clear that he didn't want the public writing a story about his son before investigators had even finished writing theirs.
Those kids, they weren't no troublemakers and set the record straight. My son had no type of gang affiliation.
Think about that. Two fathers, two different interviews, two different emotions. One was desperately trying to understand how his daughter was taken from him. The other was desperately trying to protect his son's name. Yet underneath those differences, both men were carrying exactly the same burden. Neither of them would ever see their 21-year-old child come home again. And that's the tragedy at the center of this story. Not the rumors, not the screenshots, not the endless arguments online. The tragedy is that two young lives ended before either had the chance to write the rest of their own story. As this investigation continues, detectives will follow the evidence wherever it leads. They'll examine surveillance footage, analyze forensic evidence, interview witnesses, and eventually, if the evidence allows, they'll present their findings in a courtroom. not in a comment section. Until then, perhaps the most important thing we can do is remember the people at the center of this case, not as headlines, not as social media personalities, but as two 21-year-olds whose families are still waiting for justice. So before we end this chapter, I want to leave you with a few questions. When grief is this raw, should we judge every word a parent says, or should we first recognize the unimaginable pain behind those words? How much damage can rumors cause before the truth finally has a chance to catch up? And in an age where everyone has a platform, do we sometimes forget that the loudest voices aren't always the ones carrying the heaviest burden? I'd genuinely like to hear your thoughts. Please keep the discussion respectful, not only for Brianna and AJ, but for the families who continue to live with this loss every single day. If you've been following this case with us from the beginning, let me know what has stayed with you the most. And if you appreciate thoughtful, fact-based true crime storytelling that puts people before speculation, subscribe to Mystora Crimes and turn on the notification bell. As verified developments emerge, we'll continue bringing them to you with the care, accuracy, and respect they deserve. Until next time, stay safe, take care of one another, and remember that behind every case is a family still waiting for the day when justice finally speaks.